Noswaith dda a chroeso. Good evening and welcome to this, the launch of Swansea Poverty Truth Commission. I'll need another one of those now. The first Poverty Truth Commission to take place in Wales. We are all extremely proud to be part of this, especially given the unique challenges we faced over the last 2 years. My name is Julia Manser, I work at SCVS, and I'm delighted to be here with you all this evening. I'd like to start with a thank you to Kay Lemon, Sian Denty and Catherine Piper, who make up the team coordinating and facilitating Swansea Poverty Truth Commission. They have asked me to share with you all that it is a real privilege for them to be working on this important project and to be working with such inspiring people. On the stage with her easel and pencils at the ready is Angie, a wonderful local artist. Angie's going to be capturing the Commissioner's stories in sketches as they are shared live this evening. Tonight we'll be hearing from our 11 community commissioners about their experiences of poverty in all its shapes and forms. Poverty Truth Commissions aim to centralise the real-life experiences of people living in our communities, putting a face to the facts. They recognise that we cannot hope to understand, let alone address, the causes and effects of poverty unless we involve the experts. In this context, the experts are those who have direct experience of poverty, living the reality day in, day out. Poverty Truth Commissions advocate the real progress towards tackling and overcoming poverty will be made when those who experience it are central to the development, delivery and evaluation of solutions. Tonight, we begin this journey together as we officially invite leaders across Swansea to join us as our civic and business commissioners, who, along with the community commissioners, will become Swansea Poverty Truth Commission. Before I hand over to the fantastic community commissioners who will be taking centre stage this evening, I'll run through some housekeeping, if I may. We won't be having a break tonight between the stories, but of course, if you wish to pop out to use the facilities or for any other reason, feel free to do so. There is no fire drill planned. So if the fire alarm goes off, please make your way slowly via the main staircase. To avoid any distractions, may I please ask that you put your mobiles on silent. We know that it's natural for you to want to applaud after each commissioner shares their experiences, but can we ask that you please refrain from doing so at that point? There will be an opportunity at the end for us to show our appreciation for all of the contributions together. Some of our commissioners have asked to remain anonymous, so their names and voices have been changed. On the screen, you'll see information about keeping yourself and others safe tonight. The range of experiences commissioners will be sharing include material that some might find triggering or distressing, including mentions of suicide, domestic violence, and bereavement. Please feel free to take some time out for a breather if you are affected. There are quiet areas outside the theatre in the foyer area. We have volunteers available at the end of aisles who are wearing purple sashes. If you want to speak to someone, please give us a nod on your way out. Again, in reference to what's on screen, the commissioners have asked for no photos or videos to be taken during their contributions tonight, so we'd appreciate it if you'd abide by their wishes. Swansea Music, Art, Digital will be recording the event, and we will be sharing content that we have permission for. I'm going to hand over now to one of our amazing Community Commissioners. Karen, will you please begin our event?
Hello and welcome. Swansea Poverty Truth Commission is made up of 11 individuals with a wide variety of backgrounds. Our common overlap being our experiences are embedded in the fabric of these streets and this community. As we've come together over the last 18 months, we've formed friendships, support and laughter. We've built trust, which has allowed us to unfold our stories in safe spaces. We've also created an environment that has empowered each of us with a little more confidence in our truths. What we found is that poverty isn't just a one-off experience of lack of homes or money or homelessness or benefits, but it is a complex issue with multiple experiences, often building one on top of the other. So as we launch our Poverty Truth Commission today, we will introduce you to parts of our stories, our experiences in Swansea. So to start tonight's event, I'd like to introduce our first Commissioner, Declan.
Ignore the picture, I look terrible, I don't have dreads anymore. What can I say? It's another black person. I'm on stage. So here we are. My name is Declan. I'm going to say a little bit, just because what you're about to experience is a snippet of a song that I wrote, which is completely different, but it's been adapted for this event specifically. And it's basically what myself and other people I know have gone through, and it's kind of a musical collaboration, compilation thing that I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope you get the message. And if you don't, they will be up there.
Hi everyone, my name's Adam, I'm one of the Community Commissioners. I'd like to start by thanking Declan for his performance. And next up we've got a recording from John where he takes us for a walk in his shoes.
My story started in West Supermare, and I ended up getting cuckooed. Undesirables in my flat. So the police asked me to leave Western for my own safety. Because they'd gone to prison, but I'd leave and come up to Swansea. I left a flat full of everything, a fridge full of food, stuff in the washing machine and stuff in the tumble dryer. And this all happened in a matter of 5 hours. And then I arrived in Swansea, by train. The first night I stayed in a B&B, and then I knew what I had to do. Go down to Housing Options, which is the council, and register there. But then they said, no, you've got to go down to Access Point, which deal with the homeless there. So went down to Access Point. And spent a long time there filling out forms. I'm doing everything. I wish they'd have it all in the same place. It would make life a lot easier. Struggling day in, day out. They managed to get me into night shelters, which were all right. It was a roof over my head, but nothing permanent. It was in different churches all over Swansea. But they picked you up and brought you back in the morning. So in a sense, you had all day, no matter what the weather was, you were left to your own devices. In the day, I used to go down to the library to use their internet a lot and to have a read, to read some of the books there. But then that stopped because it was the time of year, and then they started getting me into Paxton Street, which is a hostel for the homeless, in their emergency bed, which was good. What made it worse was every day you had to go back to Access Point at 2 o'clock. It didn't matter what you were doing or where you were, to find out where you were sleeping that night. Even if you already knew that you were in the night shelter, you still had to go back and register. So that's what I kept doing every day. And then a bed came up in Paxton Street. I didn't get it the first time. And then about 2 days later, they said, right, we can offer you a bed. And I went, yippee. It was a permanent address. It wasn't care of. So we were able to sort the housing out, the council out. And it was just made life a lot easier having a permanent address. But I just wasn't walking around the streets pulling my suitcase. And I was there for 6, 7, 8 months. They got me involved in crisis, which they were a great help. You could learn more skills like your budgeting for when you get your own place. And then I was offered a place in the end after going on about a year. I walked in, I went, I'll take it, it's perfect. And I moved in with everything being arranged to be delivered. New bed, a washing machine, fridge. Because of the lockdown, everything got put back, and so I didn't have anything really for about 2 weeks. I was laying on the floor, but it was my own place, so I didn't mind so much. Somebody lent me a little TV, somebody lent me a kettle. It was just a horrible feeling to me when I become homeless, because I'd never become homeless in my life. I never thought I would. But I realised that everybody can become homeless. It doesn't matter if you're rich or broke, anything, you could become homeless any time in your life. That's why I joined the Poverty Truth Commission, to make a difference and to tell my story and show that it can happen to anyone. And hopefully now, seeing what we've seen this evening, hopefully that it will change people's mindset, and that everybody's willing to help us, help the homeless, help people with mental health, and just help people. I got time for myself as well now. So I like going down the beach and just thinking how lucky I am at the moment that I have everything I've got. And I go up to see my mum and dad and my gran up in St James's Church in the Uplands. And it's nice to be able to just stand there and talk to them, let them know what's happening. It does make me feel better after. If I've got any problems, which I can't talk, I just talk to them. I don't know if they help me or not, but it does work. And like I said, then I might go back down the beach there and just sit down and reflect.
Thank you, John, for taking along that journey through Swansea. Now we're going to be hearing a recording from Michelle.
My name is Michelle. I'm 55. I've lived in poverty for over 11 years and I've been married for 19 years. And during that period, my husband got diagnosed with bipolar, had to stop working, and I then worked part-time to keep us financially semi-buoyant, which isn't quite right, but because I was working, we were unable to claim free school meals or anything like that. We didn't have that sort of backup, so it was becoming a real struggle, although we had help. We slowly sort of saw things falling away, and we had our own home at the time. And that got to the stage where we couldn't afford to pay that. So the mortgage company were going to repossess our house, and we were basically going to be homeless. So we started the process of going to the council and asking for help. The gentleman that we spoke to, he had no time to talk to us or listen to what we were going through, which was devastating. And a gentleman who was homeless was standing outside, and he said to us, they were looking to move him into a flat, and he said to us, he said, you could have my house, you can go in there. And that was so lovely of him. But on that particular visit, we spoke to a lady this time, and her attitude to us was totally different. It was more open. She listened to our circumstances. She gave us that hope that something good was going to come out of this. Within 3 months, they had offered us a house, which was amazing. And we were really surprised, but elated by the fact that we were going to have this. We were going to have a new house, and we were moved in within about 3 weeks of being told that the house was ready for us. And my son now, who was 13, and which was an important time for him as he was starting to do his GCS, getting ready for GCSEs, and he knew what was going on, and we'd explained the circumstances to him, so he had a good idea of how, as a family, we were financially sort of situated. And he was really good. He never asked for anything. He never wanted anything. The only thing he did want was a phone, but we explained we couldn't afford it. Whereas all his other friends had phones, and they although he felt a bit left out, and none of the children actually picked on him or bullied him or anything. My father passed away then last year, and part of that support has gone, and I was devastated. My dad was the person that would say, do you need some money to, are you okay, and things like that. Well, now it's my mother on her own, and she's 91. So I help my sister, who has given up her job, working on Antarctic cruise ships, and come home to look after my mum. So I help her out in between looking after being Steve's carer, and have to travel from Birchgrove to Brimmill to look after mum, make sure she's got everything, and also balance my family life, which is really hard. The DWP with my, not just with my husband and his PIP, but also trying to organise things and sort things out with the DWP for my mother as well. There seems to be no understanding when you have to constantly ring different departments within the same organisation, and you feel stupid because you think, well, maybe I'm not saying the right things to people, because you're repeating yourself constantly from each person that you have to speak to. There seems to be no communication at all. My son is 18. He will be going to university come September. We will be losing child benefit and child tax credit. Moving forward, I don't know what we will have financially to live on. We're not the scroungers. We're normal people, like everyone else. We don't have the luxury of having the holidays, of having simple things. We're not scrounging, we are trying to have a life. And our life is so basic. You need to be able to show people that yeah, the system cares and will support you, and make sure that you have what you are entitled to. You shouldn't have to fight for what should be available to you. And hopefully with the Poverty Truth Commission, not just locally but nationally, there will be some small, tiny process that we can find and put in place to improve the systems that are already there. Ideally to make it a better system for everyone to have equal and fair understanding without the soul-destroying thought of having to ask for help. And when you do ask, that someone can tell you, yes, you're entitled to have help with your rent, help with your council tax. So we ask you, can you help us change and make our lives and everyone else's lives better? That's my story, and I hope it helps you understand us. Not just me, us, all of us.
Thank you, Michelle, for sharing your experience and vision with us. I would now like to invite Karen back to the stage so she can share her story.
Good evening. So for those who didn't catch my name earlier, I'm Karen Beryl. I'm a parent carer and a serial co-producer. I've been on this journey with Swansea Poverty Truth Commission since the beginning back in 2019. I came along not from any organisation, but as a citizen co-producer full of energy at the thought of engaging in an inspiring project ready to make meaningful change. When I was considering how I wanted to deliver my story for this launch, I originally felt I would hide behind a recording with a story I was really struggling to pin down. You see, since I began with the Poverty Truth Commission way back when, several things had happened in my life with a range of significant impacts. These have left me tired, drained, and moved from a space of energy and innovation to disillusionment and exhaustion. So when it came to telling my story, I felt like I had nothing to say. You see, I could have told my story about being a young carer growing up on a council estate in Swansea to 2 disabled parents and a brother with support needs. A story of bullying and exclusion and not fitting in. I could have told a story about being a teenager in Swansea in a time when young carers were not recognised or supported, and the incredibly vulnerable position this left me in. Despite at the age of 16 trying to reach out to social services for support, and then the subsequent consequences of mental health challenges and being a homeless young person as this support was turned down. I could have told the story of becoming a teenage mum to a beautiful little girl born with profound and complex needs, and how the impact of stigma and judgments from the community and professionals around me of being a teenage mum outweighed the trauma experienced by a troubled and difficult start to life. I could tell the story about struggling as a young mum to come to terms with my daughter's disability and the resilience I needed to find at a young age as all pathways out of poverty were closed to me and my own ambitions became echoes of dreams I once had. I could tell the story of taking on my 2 stepchildren, being not much out of childhood myself, fighting to become a safe adult they could rely on as systems and professionals looked on, offering no help. I could tell the stories about facing homelessness with my children and severely disabled daughter, or experiencing an abusive relationship that I couldn't get myself out of because there was nowhere to go with a disabled child and being on benefits with no savings. Or the story about realising my younger children were on the autistic spectrum and the dread and loneliness I felt as I once again faced fighting a feelingless system that increased, not eased, my challenges. I was prompted, in fact, to talk about all the things that I've accomplished despite these challenges. The fact that I managed to hold an honours degree in politics and social policy, despite nearly having a breakdown from trying to juggle parenting, a full-time degree and a 24/7 caring role with no support. Or being a voice for parent carers in the design and delivery of local services, to include our Parent Carer Forum, despite having to sometimes take my children or daughter to meetings with me. Or even during COVID, having to mute my screen and volume to meet my daughter's care needs as services shut around me and care provision became problematic. I could in fact give you a list of all the work streams and community projects I've been involved in since co-production came to life with the Social Services and Wellbeing Act. But my greatest achievement will always be giving my children choices and opportunities they deserve despite the stigma of their childhood experience. And they still are experiencing the rollout effects of poverty. But my decision to not tell my story came more recently from undergoing a major transition in my life. After 26 years of giving my time, energy, freedom, and desires, my caring role has significantly changed. My daughter has taken a very brave step in her independence and moved on to supported living. So after 26 years, my significant caring role has ceased. And as I looked around at the landscape around me, I realised I have nothing. No career, no financial security, no home I own, no future pension I'm saving towards, and not even a vehicle, as the accessible vehicle we had went with her. You see, nobody asked me 26 years ago what my dreams were or what I would like to achieve. Our society had very concrete expectations of me, particularly as a woman, and my responsibility to provide care. In fact, I would like for women here today, and the men can too, to consider the role. The job is, for 26 years, to provide hands-on support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no days off and no holidays. If you are lucky, you can have the odd couple of hours to plan relaxing activities for yourself to enable you to continue to care. But don't rely on this, as it can change at any second. You can develop skills outside the role, but be prepared to have to drop plans at any moment, as well as to suffer the loss of income if you do too much. A lack of restful and a full night's sleep during this entire time, and all self-care will have to be always juggled alongside someone else's. That's if you can be bothered. I often went without meals or showers. In addition, you will also have to have your life choices judged worthy by a whole panel of ever-changing professionals for any care replacement to support your endeavours. This can include shopping, socialising, family activities, educational training. It's a lot like being stuck in COVID lockdown, but for 26 years. On top of these skills, you must develop for the role are, but not exclusive to, nursing, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, benefits advisor, speech-language therapy, play leader, educational psychologist and teacher. Furthermore, you must become an expert in professional speaking, be ruthless at admin and organisation, and become a dab hand at fixing a wheelchair. All on very little sleep and with no training, no insurance, no supervision, and with no HR to check in on you. Rate of pay is currently around £67 per week, and for this you must fulfil 35 hours of care a week, rising up to maybe 168 hours, but no extra income to you. And if you happen to be on any other benefit, then £26 a week will be removed. There is no extra pension offer, no career development, no references for your next job, no financial stability or the opportunity to create one, and no redundancy package, and not even a vehicle to call your own. In fact, you'll also have no work colleagues, and as a result, isolation is a very real prospect. I've worked out that as an unpaid carer, I have saved the UK purse millions, but at what cost? After 26 years, I feel I have nothing. And yes, I did ask professionals involved for support to ensure a family vehicle for me and my children. But this was deemed not worthy enough, and the system said no. I came to the Poverty Truth Commission in Swansea with hope, vitality and hunger to create change alongside people like yourselves who have the resources to deliver the change. However, my light has been dimmed, and the message I really want to exchange here is to illuminate the human experience. Because underneath the mask of poverty are very real people having very real experiences. They are often the beneficiaries of the system, a system that is delivered by people like yourselves with good hearts and good intentions. However, I feel that when all is stripped back, the system operates without human experience. And it's a system that often says no in a time of need, a system that I feel is broken. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, for coming up on the stage and sharing your experiences with us. We will now be hearing some poetry from our Commissioner Paul.
To me, poverty hasn't changed. It's stuck in an old-day textbook. Not to mention rising costs of energy bills. Life was so much better back then. You wouldn't dream of asking a neighbour for a cup of sugar. The old day slot meter. It's now a card and a code. What I'd do to be back there again. There was always a friend. How life was different back then. The times we shared, everyone knew everyone, and now it's all gone in a flash. Hard times ahead, uncertain times, and looking for an open door. Full of opportunity and a lifeline to set me free of the modern day rat race. I ask, what would Mother do? I know. Hang on in there, my boy. There's room for everyone. You have the strength of a lion. Follow your dreams. Others will follow. Together as one will be the modern day missionary and a fight for change. How I miss those good old days. When I was just a little boy, we didn't have a lot. My mother kept the light on with some silver in a slot. The TV was a rental one, that too was a meter. But when I cast my mind back, life back then seemed so much sweeter. The larder wasn't always full of tasty things to eat, but we didn't notice hunger as we played outside in the streets. Our clothes wasn't always bought from new, but quite often were worn. But we didn't follow fashion, never thought to ask for more. My mother's purse was always empty, except of course for dreams. But she always found some pennies to buy us both ice creams. Our shoes were always measured. Our hair was always neat. I remember she insisted, you must take care of your feet. School uniforms were granted and given by the state. We looked as smart as anyone when we walked through the school gate. In the summer, we'd pick berries from the hedgerows in the fields, our fingers stained with purple delight in our yield. No games consoles to keep us quiet. Our joy was climbing trees, with grass stains on our knees. The place we used to play, we didn't have a single care, as night just followed day. The girls would make their perfumes with petals from the flowers, often getting into hot water, because their blooms was never ours. We'd nick the fairy liquid tubs to have a water fight, and on the baking concrete our names we'd always write. We shared our bikes and we'd shared footballs. We used our sweaters as goalposts, and when the bitter winter came, we'd fill buckets with coal. Every single chimney cast a plume into the sky as we huddle up in front of the fire with a meat and potato pie. Scratch your name on the frosty pane before the curtains shut, tucked under a heap of blankets. No choice but to stay put. We never took a holiday, certainly never abroad. A day out in sunny Blackpool we could afford. We'd paddle in the Irish Sea and sit down in the foam and ride a donkey up on the beach and wish we could take it home. Our kitchen was always full of steam from the endless pans of spuds, and we volunteered for washing up to play the games with the suds. We made toast on an open fire. I can taste it to this day, and the dripping salted butter. It seems a half a world away. Every Christmas there was presents underneath our tinsel tree, and always we enjoyed whatever may be. In and out of our houses, up and down the streets, borrowing cups of sugar, we helped each other make ends meet. The house phone was locked, so we couldn't run up the bill, and we only tasted Lucasade if we was gravely ill. The doctor saw you on the sofa with a stethoscope and a bag. A week off school was endless if you managed the blag. And when we went to bed at night, that then was mother's time. You'd hear her downstairs singing to Johnny Cash or Patsy Cline. Life back then was infinite. You never could grow old. There was nothing to be frightened of, with mother's hand to hold. Death was never mentioned, too young to understand. It seemed life would just work out the way it planned, but the years had passed in minutes. There's no time to spare. Overnight, the silver threads adorned your mother's hair. Your endless days were over as time raced away at pace, and happy days of innocence disappeared without a trace. Don't waste a single minute of this life, which you are blessed. Things change in a heartbeat. The ride can come to rest. Good times become just memories. Faces fade and smiles are lost. Don't wish away a second. Hang on at any cost. When I was just a little boy, we didn't have a lot. But one day, all of that will be just the greatest gift I've got.
Thank you for your well-measured words, Paul. I think next I will be inviting Sophie onto the stage to share with us Yasmin's story, as she's sadly not here with us tonight.
Hi everyone, my name is Sophie, and I'm going to be reading Yasmin's story tonight. I've misplaced my thing, so I'm reading it on my phone. I have PTSD, and I disassociate my own body on a daily basis. It's almost an out-of-body experience. I watch myself live life. Sometimes I become conscious that a whole day has passed, a day that I've lived, and I can't remember a moment of it. I experience my memories in a similar way. I watch myself. I'm a child. I live in one of the most affluent areas in Swansea. I go to private education, which costs thousands of pounds a term to attend. We don't rent, but it's not our home. I wake up at 5 a.m. It is so cold. I smell dust and stale air, damp plaster, mould and rust. I listen to my mother's heavy, laboured breathing. Is she alive? Has she suffocated? Is she awake? I hope the answer to all three of these is no. I crawl out of bed, I stay low. I've memorised which floorboards are loud and which are damp. I think damp is quieter, even if it's unsafe. I don't want to risk waking anyone up. The carpet is solid after decades of use and build-up of dirt. I feel it under my toes. I press the kitchen door closed and heat up a full electric kettle of water. We have no heating, no hot water. I can't boil it fully, that would be too wasteful, and too loud. I watch myself carry it back upstairs, slower this time. It's heavy. It affects my weight and tips my balance. I'm at risk of being caught. I creep into the bath. I put my foot over the crack, which I try to cover up with paste I bought from Wilko's, but which is spreading due to the bath's brittle state. My foot will block the leak, I think, as the stench of soaking mould answers my denial. Painstakingly, I mix the warm water with ice-cold water from the bath tap in a plastic jug from Poundland. I try and pour it over my body. Half a kettle should wet me enough to use soap, the other half to rinse me as best I can. I hear movement. I'm caught. I'm still covered in soap. I watch myself go still in shame. I've wasted what little I have, we have. I'm ungrateful, she rants. I'm not my mother's daughter, she says. I take every sacrifice for granted, she screams. I know her anger isn't manageable anymore, no matter how hard she tries. I wish I was a better daughter. I wish I could fix her. My sister is silent in fear. I pull on my private school uniform. It doesn't fit, but that's the least of my worries. I can smell myself, dirt and anxiety-soaked sweat still on my skin, mixed with the soap I wasn't able to wash off in time. I know what's coming in school. I don't think I'm resigned, but I can feel nothing. I go to the car to wait. The brakes don't work well, so I remove the stones I put behind the car's wheels and pray it starts in time. It does. We drive to school. Mum wants my sister and I to escape poverty through education, so I must get to Oxford or Cambridge. I know it's what she wants. The car is cheaper than the bus. Mum can't stay awake at the wheel. Her eyes roll into the back of her head, and I reach over to steer the wheel from the passenger seat as I shout to keep her awake. She can't stand the sight of me most days, so I'm lucky to get away with it. I watch myself walk into school. My sister and I promise to find each other during the day. It's the only company we'll get. School kids mostly keep their distance from my stench. I watch myself sit on a table alone as others move their chairs to other parts of the room, only coming near me to sniff the back of my head for a dare. Do you share your shower with your parents? Imagine. Don't you have one of your own? Is your skin always that colour? Why doesn't she look like her sister? She must have been brought in from somewhere. Adopted, maybe? Have you seen her father? Yuck. Do you think she has a crush on someone? Imagine that thing touching you. I gotta go get some air. My bag and books go missing. I'm sprayed by various aerosols as I pass by. I can taste the concoction in my mouth. I'm followed at a distance by jeering groups of boys and girls. I instruct myself to stay quiet. It's a normal day. My mum is still parked outside school. It wasn't safe for her to drive home, and the petrol money won't stretch far enough. She slept in the car. I'm being picked up from school early today anyway. We have a GP appointment to go to for my mum. I catch teachers taking a look at my mother asleep in the car. I hear the tone in their voices, but I can't hear the words. The voices in my own head fill in for them. They all know how Mum owes thousands of pounds of debt to the school in unpaid fees. Benefits income can't stretch that far. I'm late. I don't know what's going to happen to me when I get in the car. I watch myself and think of nothing. I feel cold and lonely. We drive to my mum's GP. She's in so much pain. We don't have family friends, so I go in with my mum to help. I watch myself stand there. I watch her ask ask about her appointment. There's been a mix-up. The receptionists are calling people from the back. They're here! She's back! They don't notice me. Perhaps they don't think we're together. Perhaps people come from the back to giggle and stare. I watch myself standing like a fool. I can't think of what to say. Mum is desperate now. She's shouting. Her face is bloodshot from the exertion. Her pupils are pinpricks. She's obese. There's nothing wrong with you. Go for a walk and you'll feel better. I can work, why can't you? And don't come back. We leave. She sits in the car. She weeps. My sister and I sit in silence. There's nothing we can say. I see us sit in our single room at home. We have one seat each, which we stay in until it's time to sleep. Only one light left, which works reliably. We huddle around a single electric heater, rotating it between us every 15 minutes. It looks so cold. Eventually, we proceed to bed. We walk in single file through mountains of clutter, which reach higher than my head in many places. I listen to my mum heave herself up the stairs. She'll be dead soon. She checks herself into A&E. They discover a tumour, too far advanced to save her. They say to her, "You can't eat. At least you're losing weight. Must save you a fortune." They turn to me and say, "Who are you? Family only?" I can't be family because I have my father's skin colour. I watch myself say, "I am my mother's daughter." I feel so far away. I watch myself sitting beside her hospital bed now. The nurses have now recognised me as next of kin. Her death rattle sounds like sleep apnea. I think it was always coming to this. The voices tell me to keep my family together. My sister needs to make it out of this hell. When she's stable, they say, it's your turn to die. Today, I woke up gasping for breath, like every morning since they left. My heart pounds against my rib cages, and I look to check whether my sister is alive, that my mother is alive, and my grandmother is alive. I'm sweating. The room is empty. Using techniques from counselling, I reason the voices to speak quietly. I remind them that my sister made it out, and today might yet be worth living through. I shower using hot water I pay for through a stable job I'm lucky to have, the beginnings of a career. They murmur at me throughout the day. I instruct myself to acknowledge them and ignore them. Every day, every now and then, I can swear I can smell those childhood smells. Every now and then, I hear my mother screaming, but I can't make out her words. I watch myself look in the mirror. I still can't see my mother's face. I still can't see my mother's daughter. I wonder what I need to do to earn the respect of a dead woman. And every day when I go home, I fix a bit of plaster in my home.
Thank you, Sophie, for sharing Yasmin's childhood with us and how it still sadly affects her to this day. Next up, we have a recording from Melvin.
My name's Melvin Williams, and we're going to talk about the how far back being poor sets you in terms of attainment in school, college, career. My own experience in terms of higher education is that when I went to higher education, I had absolutely no idea what the purpose of it was, what I was going to achieve, what the end goal was. I was led to believe, not maliciously, but I was led to believe that you went to college and you left college and you got a job that related to the subject you studied in college. And a lot of people get that. And that's something that's emerged as more and more people have gone to university, because the Blair government made a huge push in terms of getting people into university. It was successful, but what you're getting is people leaving university and having no idea what to do with the degree that they've got, and ending up in a completely unrelated field with a useless degree and dead. Because I grew up in a very typical working class family, except we had less money than other families, simply because there were more of us. 4 children, and 4 children are expensive. So my father was a postman eventually. My mother worked in the hairdressers, and they had no idea about higher education because nobody in the family had ever been through higher education. I was the first one. I was the youngest of 4 children, but I had no idea what to do there. No idea what career structure there was, or what was available locally or nationally. Didn't have the contacts or the confidence really to branch out and to follow this up. Eventually ended up collecting glasses in a nightclub to earn money. And then I did get onto a job creation scheme, which allowed me to use my skills. So I was a graphic designer on a job creation scheme, which lasted a year. And after that, I went back to college. Probably 2 or 3 years later, I think if I'd have been in a family that was better off, probably more middle class, I think again that the pressures would probably have been greater to conform and to get a job. They always thought that going to art college was fine. It was okay following your talent. Whereas I guess probably they didn't know. They didn't know what other options there were. They didn't know that possibly it would have been better off. I'd be more off doing sciences or, just accountancy or something that would have got me a job in management somewhere. I think possibly because they didn't know that, then there was more scope for me to follow my talent. But probably if I came from a professional family, then I would have been more likely to go into a professional route rather than an artistic one. If you're from a working class background, I can only speak personally, but I went through school and I was pretty bright. I was in the top class for everything, and up until about the age of 13. And then they merged our schools. So I came from Harvard, and they merged our schools with Mansellton. And Mansellton's only slightly posher than Harvard. And the difference was unbelievable. They played violin, they played piano, they rode horses. Their parents had like model aircraft that actually flew. Just extraordinary stuff that I had no concept of. And one of them I got very friendly with. His father was the manager of a cash and carry down in the docks. So again, it wasn't like they weren't massively rich, but yeah, they had disposable income. Just in terms of streaming, their performance in class, or their results in tests, it was just, they were streets ahead of us. Yeah, we used to poke fun of them. They were the posh boys. I suppose in the abstract sense that they were them, but of course then we were in classes with them, and we became friends. So you do. It's that thing where it's difficult to stay hostile when you actually get to know somebody. I think the cultural difference between working class people and middle class people, I think is massive at the moment. And there's not really much of a desire that I can see among people with power to understand people without power. That's it. They're not entirely without power. They are voters, and they have successfully managed to massively mess with the political system over the last 6 years or so. So I think that, yeah, overall there's this just huge cultural divide between working class people and middle class people, and working class people don't have a voice. It's like everybody has a. When you see these celebrities on Love Island and Big Brother and places like that, everybody ridicules them because they haven't done anything, they haven't achieved anything, but this is the only way they're ever going to be part of the conversation. It's the only way anybody's ever going to listen to what they've got to say. Because what other route is there? You know, if you're middle class, if you've gone through Eton and Cambridge, you know, you're going to go and get a job on the Telegraph, and you're being listened to every day. You know, you've got all these opportunities to pull the levers of power, to get your say, to get your viewpoint put across, and to get taken seriously. Both my parents worked, but we had less money than people whose parents didn't work. I mean, you'd go into school and it'd always be like the scruffy kids, and that wasn't us. They actually had more money than we did, but my parents, I guess, made sure that we were well presented and well fed, and so we always had that, but we never had anything else. People would come back from having gone to Butlins, because Butlins was like the cheap holiday for working class people back in the 70s, and we couldn't afford to go to Butlins. We went to London once, where we slept. There were 6 of us sleeping in an estate car in a lorry park in Hammersmith. And that's what we did for a week in London. And at the time, obviously, it's a big adventure. And we had absolutely no idea that hotels existed anyway, because we didn't have a TV. It just all this stuff like only ever having the basics. And whereas other kids had stuff. Until I got a decent job and managed to buy my house and live comfortably. Until I did that, I always felt skint. But now, even though I've probably got less disposable income than I had in my 30s, I don't feel skint. I don't have those kind of, I want shiny stuff. I don't have that. And I can, it's not even discipline. It's kind of a lot of stuff you don't think about that you need. When you've grown up being poor, you can live like that.
Thank you, Melvin, for your recording. And next, I think we have a recording from Chloe.
I'm a mother of 2 young adults. I'm a law student at the University of Wales, Trinity St. David, and I am an asylum seeker. Before I moved to the UK, I was the head teacher of a private primary school as a single mother It wasn't easy, but I was working and I could provide for my children. But when I moved to the UK, as an asylum seeker, you are not allowed to work. You are just on support from the Home Office, and the support is meant to be for food, for clothing, and other basic things. That was when I came, I knew what poverty was. It wasn't easy meeting the basic needs with two young adults, having to provide, healthy food, having to pay for their transportation to school, having to buy clothing, and having to get toiletries for them, and a few other things that were needed. I've had lots of support from organizations that I volunteer with, and it has been tremendous, meeting people that are ready to support you, their kind words. Sometimes I'm posting you to organizations that could be of help. And my identity has shaped my experience of poverty, because before I came to the UK, back in the country where I came from, when we talk about poverty, we talk about the basic needs of life, food, clothing, and shelter. Someone that probably is homeless, cannot, even afford just one basic square meal. But when I came to the UK, I discovered that poverty is, it's different, because there's poverty of the mind as an asylum seeker. Since you're not allowed to work, you're just in the house, just staying indoors, doing nothing. Sometimes you're isolated, lots of mental issues that you'll be battling with based on your traumatic experience. There's no one to talk to. It could be devastating and it could be disheartening. That has made me to know that there's something called poverty of the mind. Before now, I was a head teacher. My mind was productive. I was working, but coming to the UK and not allowed to work, it was frustrating. And what I needed to do just to stay alive was to get some organizations to volunteer and also to, to network. I got to hear about the Poverty Truth Commission through one of the organizations that I volunteer with, the Swansea City of Sanctuary. And I became interested because I wanted my voice to be heard. I wanted to be a voice to other asylum seekers so that everyone will know that we are not just here to take all the benefits of the government, but that, most of us are here we had skills that we came with that we could contribute to UK. And, but, it looks as if our voices are not being heard, because during the pandemic, we had to survive like others. Just with the little money that we had to buy, disinfectant just to, stay safe. We had to buy hand sanitizers. And so my comment to know about the Poverty Truth Commission made me to know that my voice could be heard, and I became interested. And since then, I've had lots of awareness about, people that are going through poverty. And I know that I'm not just alone. My views on poverty has changed in several ways. Like I earlier mentioned, the mentality I had before I came here about poverty was entirely different. I just know someone that had no access to any food, clothing, or shelter. But my coming to UK, know that there are lots of ways that, that one can actually struggle with poverty. Like having to wait until the food in the shops are reduced to clear before you could afford even the basic, having to choose between, paying for your children to get to school and healthy food, having to just sacrifice lots of things. And sometimes food is the last thing on your mind. Just want to get other things going, at least for the children to get to school. My typical day-to-day life, it's really very challenging, because most times when I wake up, I was like, oh, it's another day, and I was just wondering, when will this journey end? Having to wake up and not knowing sometimes where the next meal will come from, having to wake up every morning and, you're just tired of everything and just wondering, when will you be allowed to work? Lots of things have changed. Firstly, I've come to appreciate, what poverty is on a different level. I've come to know, like I earlier mentioned, that I was not alone. and there are other people, on this journey with me, and it has informed, the way I appreciate people around me, and the way I know that there are people that are ready to support you, that there are lots of shoulders that you could lean on. I decided to take part in the Poverty Truth Commission projects. Like I earlier mentioned, it gave me a new perspective of what life is all about. I'm so glad and happy that there are people that are ready to listen to you, and they're ready to help you and support you, even while struggling with poverty. And I've also, met like-minded people that are ready to make their voices to be heard, and are ready to change, the policies. What I want people to learn from my stories, that asylum seekers are not people that are here, to enjoy the benefits of the taxpayers. They're also people that came here with their own skills, and they are ready to work if they are allowed to work, and they could contribute meaningfully to the community in which they belong. I volunteer in lots of organizations, and I know, that I'm a pleasant addition to anywhere I go to. So I just want people to embrace and welcome asylum seekers anywhere they are in their community. I know that most of them have actually gone through, traumatic experience. So welcoming them, giving them that open hand, we enable them to be able to integrate very fast in the community. I plan to still continue with the Poverty Truth Commission to ensure, that the voices of people living in poverty are heard, and to see how we could use our lived experience to change policies, and to also create awareness, for people to know that sometimes when people are living in poverty, they are not lazy, they are not people that are just here to, to enjoy the government benefit. But sometimes it's not their fault, and if given the opportunity, most of them will contribute meaningfully to the community they belong.
Thank you, Chloe, for recording and sharing your experience with us. I think we now have Hannah coming to the stage to share David's story.
Hi, my name is Hannah, and I'm going to share David's story. Good evening. My name is David. I am 36 years old, and I'm an asylum seeker from Eritrea. I have lived in Swansea since 2020. I have traveled through and lived in many countries on my journey to find a safe place I can call home. In total, I have spent 21 years of my life moving from one place to another, searching for a place to build a home and a future for myself. I look back on these years, and I often feel that I have nothing: no family, no education, no job, no friends close by, and no place here in this country where I can practice my faith, which is one of the most important things in my life. I did make friends and found support with others who practiced my religion when I lived temporarily in Cardiff. But then I was told I had to move, as this accommodation was temporary housing. Where I live now, in the town center, there are many problems. My house, which I share with another 2 people who are also asylum seekers, is infested with rats. Last winter, we had no heating or hot water for over 4 weeks. We now have a hot water tap in the kitchen that is broken and leaks hot water all day and night. We report these concerns regularly to our house manager, who says that they will be fixed. Then we report them again, then again, and again. Our house has a bad smell. The rats live, fight, and die on our walls. They leave droppings around the house, in our bedrooms and communal areas. Every time we report a problem, we are afraid because we could be moved to another house in a different area, which might leave us isolated and unable to access the facilities in the city center. I have moved so many times, and each time leaves me more disassociated from my surroundings and myself. Who am I? This person who has no place to call home, no rights to choose where I live or work, no identity other than that of asylum seeker. I spent many days now volunteering for 2 local charities, which I am able to do as I live close by. I have no money for transport. I live on £41 a week. I have made friends from when I spent time in London. It is difficult to spend time with them as the cost of travel there are unaffordable. I am a Christian, and the only way now I can meet and practice my faith group is online. Our house has no internet access, so at first this was nearly impossible. All accommodations for asylum seekers is supposed to have internet. I would have to go to cafes and stand outside to try and log onto the public network. I could not afford to make calls or text when I needed support. Since I joined Swansea Poverty Truth Commission, I was able to apply for a mobile phone with a year's free data. This has helped me to be able to meet other commissioners online in Zoom meetings during COVID. Life has been and is still very difficult. My future lies in the hands of people I've never met. It is still unknown to me what will happen next. Every day I live with this fear, and that is very scary. My best friend decided to take his own life. Like many others, the pain of continuing to live after all he had been through was too much. I miss him very much. I decided to join Swansea Poverty Truth Commission because I wanted to provide hope to and help improve the lives of asylum seekers and others who are vulnerable, excluded, and feel alone in this city. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Hannah, for sharing David's story with us of his life since he's been in the country. We've now got 2 recordings left for the evening, and next I believe we have Amara.
My name is Amara. I am 50 years old. This is my story. I was born in Jordan. I came from a family that didn't have a very large income. It made me feel always worried about the future. I studied very hard and graduated university and worked for big companies in different countries. After meeting my ex-husband, we married and I moved to Swansea, leaving all my life and my career behind in my country. After our marriage, my husband totally changed. His business became bankrupt and the domestic abuse started. I then unexpectedly became a mother. There were always financial problems with my husband's business. He did not let me work. I had to look after my child 24/7 because of his overloaded working hours. When the abuse became so intense, emotionally and financially, In order to survive, I had to leave and find a safe place. I found this with a charity. Being a survivor of domestic abuse was not easy. I was isolated. For many years, I did not even have a solo bank account. Trying to save my child from him, dealing with the benefits agency, housing, legal aid, all court proceedings, being in court 35 times over 7 years was a big challenge. And his corrosive abuse still continues. I have got a huge amount of debt from legal aid. I do not know what I'm going to do with my future. I have lost all my self-confidence, education skills, and work experience. Even I feel that this young ambitious lady wasn't me. I am suffering with lots of physical and mental illness. I need to take 8 tablets a day to continue my daily life, which is not a good quality lifestyle at all. Sometimes I feel there's no happiness in the world for me. I feel emotionally drained. But even through all these battles, I have survived and become more aware of my life's purpose. We are just in this world for a while. We should do our best to be useful and help ourselves and others, and we should value every breath that we take. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amara, for sharing your experiences with us. Our last recording of the evening is mine. I had some help from Yasmin, so you'll be hearing from her as well. And I'll share you my story.
I'm Yasmin. Hi.
And I'm Adam. I think we're going to be starting with my interview today.
Fabulous. The fabulous Adam. So Adam, in what ways would you say poverty has impacted your life the most?
It's hard to say, to be honest, but I didn't really have much of an impact of poverty in my younger years. I didn't really notice much in my childhood or my late teens, but when I first moved out age 17 with my partner, that's when I started to realise how expensive the world really is. I was the sole earner when it was just me and my partner. We had a small flat together while she was studying and I was working full time. And it seemed that no matter how many hours I worked, whether it be 40, 60, 80, or sometimes even 100 hours, the ends just still didn't meet. So even though I was working these crazy hours, I was still slowly creeping into debt throughout the years. We then had a son together, and I don't know what's more expensive, being an adult or having a child. So before we had our child, we were still crawling into debt. So with a child, we were nosediving into debt, really. And then when the relationship broke down, I ended up moving back into the family home. And I think my ex-partner did the same. She moved back in with her parents. And we split the custody between us. And even though I didn't have any house to pay for or any bills to pay for, this shadow of debt was still kind of looming over me, even though I'm still working all these hours with no bills to pay at this point. And when I moved back into the family home, it'd been about 2-3 years since I'd lived there, and the room I was living in at the time when I was younger wasn't available, so me and my son actually moved into the conservatory, which is nice enough, but the summers are searingly hot, and even though I got 2 big doors to open. There's not enough breeze in the world when you're living in a greenhouse, basically. And then the winters, there's not enough blankets in the world when you're in a room made of glass. It's bitterly cold.
We were talking earlier, briefly before we started having a chat here, and you alluded to the fact that you had a lot of responsibilities at a young age, and you mentioned briefly that you had family members who perhaps weren't very well and who you had to look after.
Yeah, so as well as looking after my young son at the time, I was working full-time in mental health nursing at the time. I came home from work after a night shift, went to sleep, and I was woken up early afternoon, and my stepfather had told me that my mother was trying to kill herself, which is something I never expected or even thought possible. I spent the next few days trying to get her the help she needed, which she wasn't too happy about. She ended up in hospital and I ended up homeless. I was sleeping in my car, and when I had my son, I had the privilege of staying at a friend's house on those days. And that was my life for a good few months. She was in hospital for quite a while. Me and my son and the rest of the family would visit as often as we could. But, yeah, it was my first experience of homelessness, and even though I had a friend's sofa and a car, I still had nowhere to kind of call my own.
And you were still living with debt at this time as well?
Yeah, so even though I'd been living at the family home in the conservatory for about a year and a half, almost 2 years at this point, I still had quite a big shadow of debt above me. So trying to find somewhere to live while you're in debt, it's impossible to get onto the private market because you need a deposit, and at this point I couldn't even keep up with my credit card, bear in mind, put a deposit down. So I applied for the council waiting list as soon as I possibly could, and that's how I got the house I still live in today.
Right. And how long did that take?
So I would have applied as soon as I was made homeless, and I think I was living in my car for about 3, maybe 4 months, so not too long. I think things were sped up because I had a young son, which is great, and I'm very happy to have the house I have now, even if my garden is a hill. But after a while of me settling in, I'd left my job in mental health nursing because I just couldn't cope. I felt like some of the patients were probably having a healthier lifestyle than I was, which isn't a good outlook when you're working in nursing. So I left. I started working in the service industry. Within 3 months, I was working in management in the restaurant I was working. And that was actually the last time I ever saw my mother. She came into the restaurant with one of her close friends that we've known for years. I spent as much time with her when she came in as I could, and if I had known that was the last time I saw her, I don't think I'd let her leave. Yeah, she finally took her life in the July of that year, and things haven't been the same since. I've struggled to keep up with a full-time job, as much as I've tried. I ended up losing my license, which meant I lost the job I was working in the remote location. So now I have a house and a car, but I can't afford or use either of them. Yeah, I think that's my story.
I'm struck by how much you had to carry at a young age, and also how no matter how hard you worked, no matter how many times you struggled to get back on your feet, circumstances that were out of your control were the things that kept knocking you back.
Yeah, it was like every time I got back up on my feet, the carpet was pulled from me, and then I got back up and the floor was pulled away, and then I'm sinking, and somehow I'm just constantly sinking. And then I think I found my feet again, and then I'm back down again. It's a painful cycle that I'm hoping will end at some point. And I'm close to being on my feet again, but we'll see. We'll see.
And with that in mind, why did you join the Poverty Truth Commission?
Well, even though it's not the most common story, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that will relate to my kind of story, especially with the taking the steps you think you can take, and then after you've taken them, realizing how big those steps are and your legs aren't that long. Mine definitely aren't. I think a big part of my story is having so many things that may seem to have monetary value, but having no way to utilize them to kind of improve your own life. And I guess there's the people who are homeless, when if you look at them on paper, they just really shouldn't be. I know I shouldn't have been, or at least I hope not. And I think it'd be a good thing, using my experience, to talk to those working in mental health services, homeless and housing services. And I've had the luxury of using a few food banks along the way, so it'd be nice to talk with some of them.
I see. Well, thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you, Yasmin.
I'm not sure there are any words to follow that. I think all there is to say is a massive thank you, diolch, to all of our commissioners for the honesty, courage and grace with which you have shared your experiences tonight. Tonight has been a humbling and inspiring evening. We'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge that many of you in the room have been instrumental in helping us to get to this stage, helping us to meet our community commissioners, committing to providing the funding needed, raising awareness about the commission and many other aspects. For all your support. We extend a huge thank you to everyone who has been involved to date. To finish this evening's event, we have asked our civic and business commissioners to take part in a little activity, and we'll be inviting them into our stage in a moment. Firstly, however, I'd like to take this opportunity to invite our community commissioners onto the stage. Please join me in showing our appreciation. On the screen we have a list of the organisations in Swansea who have committed to supporting the Commission, representatives from which will be joining us as our civic and business commissioners as we move into the next exciting phase. Please note that not all of our commissioners were able to attend tonight, but a huge thank you to those who have come along. We've asked our business and civic commissioners to write one word that sums up their response to what we have heard tonight. Please join us now on the stage and share your thoughts with us. Thank you all. Would you like to show us what you've been able to look at? I think maybe I'd like to ask everybody in order to say their words out loud, if that wouldn't be too hard. Start on this side. Thank you.
So, sobering.
Grateful.
Opportunity.
Impact. Humility. Humbled. Control.
Well-being. Moved. Ready. Powerful. All of us.
Change.
Real. Courage. Listen.
Before we close, we've invited a representative from our Civic and Business Commissioners, Trudy Merrick, South Wales Police, to say a few words, and then Paul, one of our Community Commissioners, will close our event. We will have the foyer space until 9 o'clock this evening. You are free to stay and mingle. Have a look at the exhibitions if you haven't already.
Thank you. Wow. What an amazing launch. Just wow. And such heartfelt and humbling lived experiences shared with us this evening. Thank you so much. And it's pertinent as it comes at a time when we've all seen the widespread cost of living issues, and we've seen the harrowing reporting of the challenges that people are living with and the worries for the years ahead. I will certainly be reflecting on what I've heard this evening. And I and my colleagues here and the commissioners, we feel immensely proud and privileged to be part of the first Poverty Truth Commission, not only in Swansea, but the first one in Wales, and where we can collectively work together to identify how we can truly tackle poverty and inequality, making a difference to everybody and all the communities in Swansea. Thank you very much.
Wow, coming from that. Powerful. Thank you, guys. Right, excuse me, I haven't got my glasses, it's quite... Lights. Right, I'd just like to thank you all for joining us tonight. To experience some of the amazing summaries of the stories to everyone. Obviously, you have to excuse my constant. Those, yeah, hang on. Dime ever average. We've got charity shows as well. There you go. That's bang. Absolutely bang, yeah. Right. I'd just like to thank you all for joining us on the journey tonight and listening to the experiences. We would be eagerly minding all of you to summarise of our stories to everyone who has come into the next few weeks. We would be delighted if you would join us again in a few years' time to celebrate the learning of the commissioners and achievements. Thank you and good night.